Allison here. Thank you so much for joining me on 3 Minutes of Real Estate. I wanted to cover a topic today that has actually come up quite a bit, and I think it's as more and more investors are starting to look at syndication opportunities, particularly in the multifamily apartment space. They're really wanting to understand how best to conduct due diligence, and that is a very critical point when assessing a potential investment company or syndicator or sponsor to invest with. So I have a handful of recommendations, although again, as always, not all inclusive, but some that I really think that you should be considering as you're having these conversations with members of the syndications team. So the first one is really honing in on getting familiar with the sponsor directly. And that is understanding their experience. How long have they been doing this? Have they invested through a full market cycle? Those are some key questions to ask. And make sure that you have an understanding on their track record. You would probably want to see at least multiple exits and the performance relevant to that. And instead of just asking for the performance, I would also ask for benchmarks. And by that, I mean, how did they perform relative to their initial projections? Because it's one thing to just give you a great number for a performance and return, but it's another thing to understand how they performed relative to how they modeled the opportunity. And so that is a key question that I would ask. Another question I would ask is how they assess markets, how they determine markets, and make sure that you feel comfortable with the markets that they are actively investing in and where they have their exposure. Another big one is how they underwrite. I would ask to see an example model and just see some of their expenses, how they're projecting cash flow on the property, cash on cash return, IRR, and then also understanding what their growth projections are over the time horizon for which you would be investing. And then lastly, but certainly not least, and again, this is not all encompassing, is I would ask for what they're thinking about with regard to risks, whether that's market risk, whether that's interest rate risk, whether that's any type of particular geographical risks that they're thinking about. But at least make sure that you feel comfortable and ensure that they're thinking ahead of the curve or thinking around the curve, so to speak, with regard to some of those potential risks that they need to be thinking about how best to mitigate, and particularly how they plan to address that with regard to their exit strategy. Do they have a flexible strategy? Do they have to sell it within a certain time horizon? Or are they willing to hold on to it to exit it for the greatest level of return? So again, just a handful of things that I might suggest you consider and think about. There is plenty more, and with that, I would love to hear your ideas and potentially some of the questions you are asking. So please drop me a comment, reach out if you have any questions, and thank you again for tuning in, and I hope to have you all join me next time. Have a great day.